The sun hung low over the city of Kano, casting a golden hue across the ancient trade routes that had for centuries carried salt, gold, and dreams. In the bustling marketplace, where shouts of merchants rose like a timeless chorus, a boy weaved between the stalls. His eyes, sharp and curious, scanned the wares: sacks of grain, bolts of fabric, glistening spices. That boy was Aliko Dangote, unaware that in his veins ran the same fire that had once powered the great traders of Africa. Destiny was stirring, and soon the world would know his name. In the heat of the late 1950s, under the sprawling sunlit skies of Kano, a city famed for its ancient trading heritage, a boy was born into a dynasty of merchants. His name was Aliko Dangote. The air buzzed with the cadence of commerce, carts rattling with grains, the sharp scent of leather tanning in workshops, traders in flowing babanrigas bargaining fiercely in Hausa, Arabic, and English. Kano was no ordinary city. It was the heartbeat of commerce in West Africa, a crossroads where caravans once converged, laden with salt, gold, and cloth. It was here that Aliko took his first breaths, in a home where business was not just a livelihood, but a legacy. The Dangote family was among the most respected names in northern Nigeria. His great-grandfather, Alhassan Dantata, had been the richest man in West Africa at the time of his death, a titan of kola nut, groundnut, and cloth trading. At the dinner table, stories of deals struck and fortunes made filled the air alongside the aroma of tuwo and miyan kuka. Young Aliko listened, wide-eyed, absorbing tales of camel caravans crossing the Sahel, of fortunes riding on the reins, of trust and betrayal among merchants. In trade, his grandfather often said, voice rough with age but firm with conviction, your name is your most precious commodity. Those words seared into Aliko's young mind. He realized early that in business, by the age of 8, while other children played football on dusty fields, Aliko was selling candy in the schoolyard. Not out of necessity, his family was wealthy, but out of a restless desire to understand money, to see how value moved between hands. He would buy sweets wholesale, neatly divide them, and sell at a markup to classmates. The thrill of a good day's profit lit a fire inside him. Not greed, but a fascination with the mechanics of trade. How needs created opportunity, how timing affected price, how relationships built loyalty. He was learning the language of business before he even fully grasped the complexities of mathematics, and he loved every minute of it. His family, recognizing the spark within him, ensured he had the finest education. Aliko attended the prestigious Capital High School in Kano and later Al-Azhar University in Cairo, Egypt, where he studied business and Arabic. Egypt was a revelation. Walking the ancient streets of Cairo, attending lectures in grand halls echoing with centuries of scholarship, Aliko's mind expanded beyond Kano's markets. He saw how great civilizations had risen, not merely through conquest, but through commerce. The spice routes, the silk roads, the bustling bazaars of the ancient world, they were all built on the same principles that his grandfather had taught him. At night, in the solitude of his small apartment overlooking the Nile, Aliko scribbled furious notes into worn notebooks. Import, export, distribution, scale, trust, efficiency. He was not merely learning, he was architecting the blueprint of his future empire. One day, he whispered to himself, gazing over the Nile's shimmering waters, I will build something even they will remember. In 1977, after completing his education in Cairo, Aliko Dangote returned to Nigeria with one mission: to start his own business. Armed with a business degree, the stories of his grandfather's triumphs, and a hunger for success, Aliko set his sights on import trade, but not just any trade. He had an eye for the essentials, the commodities that were always in demand: sugar, rice, cement. Every Nigerian family needed these items, and in a country with rising demand and limited local supply, the opportunities were endless. The world around him, though, was anything but easy. Nigeria in the 1970s was recovering from the scars of the Civil War, and the oil boom had created an influx of cash, but also instability. Inflation was high, and currency devaluation eroded people's savings. Amid the chaos, however, Dangote saw opportunity. Aliko's first step into the business world was small, but significant. In the dusty corners of Lagos, he borrowed money from family and friends to import sugar, which he then sold at a higher price to local retailers. At first, it was slow going. His first shipment came and went without much fanfare. But Aliko quickly learned the art of negotiation, the subtle skill of convincing wholesalers that his product was better, his service faster, and his prices fairer. He didn't have an army of workers or vast warehouses, but he had something that few others did: the will to persevere. Each transaction, each deal was a lesson. By the time he secured his second shipment, the risks felt smaller, the rewards larger. The marketplace was his training ground, and there his reputation began to take shape. Every sale was an opportunity to build a network of loyal customers and suppliers. Word of his punctuality, reliability, and business savvy spread. Soon, larger importers began to notice the young man whose shipments were always on time. For Aliko, it was a chess game, but every move brought him closer to something bigger. By 1981, Aliko Dangote's ambitions had grown. He had tasted success, and now he was ready for the next challenge: cement and rice. The Nigerian economy was expanding, but there was one major problem. Nigeria's cement market was highly dependent on imports. Demand for cement was rising rapidly, especially with the government's push for infrastructure development, roads, bridges, and buildings. Yet cement was costly, and much of it came from abroad. Aliko, seeing an opening, started importing bulk cement directly. But he didn't stop there. He realized that the key to success in the cement trade wasn't just distribution, it was controlling the supply chain. So he began buying cement in bulk, setting up distribution networks across Nigeria. He even opened warehouses in key cities. His delivery trucks crisscrossed the country, ensuring that cement reached the construction sites faster than anyone else. He slashed prices and improved service. His competitors couldn't keep up. Meanwhile, rice, the staple food of millions of Nigerians, was another lucrative opportunity. Like cement, rice was heavily imported, but the country's demand was growing faster than supply. Again, Aliko saw the potential to step in and dominate. He arranged bulk shipments of rice, particularly from Thailand and India, and created a distribution network in key Nigerian markets. It wasn't just the quality of the product that set Aliko apart. It was his relationship building. He understood that the lifeblood of business was trust. For Aliko, every transaction was personal. Every supplier, every customer, every employee was treated as an extension of his business. He worked tirelessly to ensure that everyone in his network had what they needed, whether it was timely payments or superior service. At the same time, Aliko learned the delicate balance of negotiation. With suppliers, he haggled for lower prices. With customers, he listened carefully to understand their needs before offering solutions. He spent long hours in the markets, speaking directly to traders and wholesalers, ensuring that his product was top quality and his pricing unbeatable. He went beyond the role of a businessman. He became a trusted partner to his clients, a friend who understood their challenges and worked with them to solve them. It wasn't uncommon to find Aliko visiting the warehouses of his customers, helping unload goods, or chatting with laborers at construction sites about how he could help them meet their targets faster. This was business the Aliko Dangote way, built on relationships, not just transactions. Yet, it wasn't all smooth sailing. Nigeria in the 1980s was fraught with political and economic challenges. Inflation ravaged the market, and devaluation of the naira caused rampant price fluctuations. Aliko faced mounting pressure as the cost of his imported goods skyrocketed, while the purchasing power of Nigerian consumers declined. But Aliko had a knack for turning challenges into opportunities. In the midst of a chaotic political landscape, he learned to adapt and innovate. At one point, government policies on import restrictions and tariffs made the importation process much more difficult. But Aliko didn't buckle under the pressure. Instead, he diversified his imports. He secured deals directly with producers in countries like Thailand and Brazil, cutting out middlemen and ensuring that he could pass on savings to his customers. When rice and cement faced import levies, he took the fight to the courts and lobbied for changes in the policies that were strangling the industry. His ability to pivot in the face of adversity became one of his signature traits. By the mid-1980s, Aliko Dangote had become a name that people in the business world respected. He was no longer just a young man from Kano with a dream. He was a force in the Nigerian marketplace, building momentum in the world of trade. He realized, however, that to sustain his success, he would need to look beyond mere trading. Importing cement and rice was a lucrative business, but it required constant attention and faced constant risks. What he needed now was something more sustainable: manufacturing. The vision was clear: produce what Nigeria needed locally. He began thinking bigger. He had the experience, the relationships, and the reputation to make something even more remarkable. What began with small imports of sugar and cement would soon blossom into one of the most ambitious industrial ventures in modern African history. By the late 1980s, Nigeria was experiencing rapid urbanization. The nation's infrastructure demands were spiraling, and the Nigerian government was pushing hard for national development, particularly in construction, roads, and housing. The country was awakening to the dawn of a new era, one where concrete was needed for schools, hospitals, homes, highways, and factories. However, there was a significant problem. The cost of cement was unpredictable. Import taxes, global market fluctuations, and the logistics of bringing cement from faraway places like Europe and Asia made it more expensive than it needed to be. In a country as vast as Nigeria, with infrastructure needs growing every day, there was a clear gap in the market. Aliko Dangote saw this gap, and he saw an opportunity. Aliko had already proven himself a savvy trader, but now his ambition demanded more. He began to realize that to meet Nigeria's construction demands, the solution wasn't just to import, it was to produce cement domestically. This would reduce costs, ensure reliability, and cater to Nigeria's growing urban and industrial infrastructure needs. At this point, Dangote's business had grown sufficiently, and his financial network was well established. He had connections with international suppliers, relationships with government officials, and a clear understanding of Nigeria's market. But cement manufacturing was a massive leap. Huge investments were required in infrastructure, machinery, and raw materials. The stakes were high, and the risks were even higher. Aliko knew that if he succeeded, he would be creating not just a business, he would be creating an industry. One evening, in 1985, as Aliko sat in his Lagos office, the weight of the decision settled in. He stared out at the city, watching the lights flicker in the distance, each light representing a new building, a new school, a new home. He could see it clearly in his mind's eye: the future of Nigeria built on locally produced cement. "We need to produce this ourselves," he whispered to himself, as if to make the thought tangible. This moment, sitting alone in his office as the city pulsed around him, was the defining moment that would change the course of his life and Nigeria's. With his vision in place, Aliko moved swiftly. The next step was clear: Dangote Cement. It began in the town of Obajana, a remote location in Kogi State, where the company would establish its first plant. The choice was strategic. Obajana had an abundance of limestone, the essential raw material needed to produce cement. Not only would this cut transportation costs, but it would give Dangote a significant advantage over competitors who would need to import this crucial resource. But setting up a cement factory wasn't simple. It was a complex, multi-year project that involved significant hurdles, from securing land and obtaining permits to securing financing. The financial outlay was massive, and many doubted that Aliko could pull it off. His investors were skeptical, and even Aliko's family warned him about the potential risks. Yet, despite the doubts, Aliko was undeterred. He worked tirelessly, ensuring that the project was on schedule, overseeing the installation of equipment, and negotiating with international cement machinery suppliers. He even ventured to countries like Germany, China, and India to purchase the best equipment available for his plant. Aliko had an innate ability to find solutions. When financing was tight, he didn't back down. He negotiated better terms with the banks. When challenges arose in securing raw materials, he invested in local quarries to secure a reliable supply chain. In 2000, after years of hard work and sacrifice, the first cement was finally produced at Dangote Cement's Obajana plant. The factory, once just a vision in Aliko's mind, now stood tall as a beacon of Nigerian industrialization. It wasn't just a factory. It was a testament to Aliko's resilience and his ability to turn a vision into reality. As the first cement bags rolled off the production line, Aliko knew this was just the beginning. His commitment to quality, reliability, and customer satisfaction set his product apart from competitors. The price was competitive, the supply reliable, and the demand was growing exponentially. Dangote cement quickly became the go-to choice for construction companies, local builders, and even the Nigerian government itself, which had long struggled with inconsistent cement supplies. The word spread rapidly, and soon Dangote's name became synonymous with cement production in Nigeria. Aliko didn't stop at Obajana. Over the next decade, he expanded Dangote Cement's presence across Nigeria, building more plants in Benue, Lagos, and Calabar. Each new plant was a reflection of his growing ambition. The scale of his operations quickly eclipsed that of every other competitor in the country. By the mid-2000s, Dangote Cement had achieved unparalleled success. The company's dominance in Nigeria was unquestionable. In 2007, Dangote Cement became a publicly listed company, and Aliko saw the opportunity to raise even more capital for expansion. The move was a game-changer, allowing Dangote to raise funds, reduce debt, and increase production capacity. With Nigerian cement needs steadily growing, Aliko made sure Dangote Cement expanded even further. By 2010, the company was producing millions of tons of cement annually, not only supplying Nigeria, but also expanding its reach to neighboring countries in West Africa. In countries like Ghana, Senegal, Togo, and Cameroon, Dangote Cement quickly became the market leader. The company even began to export cement to the rest of Africa, positioning itself as a dominant force on the continent. Aliko had now built not just a business, but an empire, one that would change the economic landscape of Africa. The rise of Dangote Cement had far-reaching implications for Nigeria's economy. Not only did it reduce the nation's reliance on foreign imports, but it created thousands of jobs in the process. Dangote's plants became economic hubs that provided employment for engineers, truck drivers, administrative staff, and laborers. The multiplier effect was evident. Local economies thrived as suppliers and smaller businesses began to see increased demand for their goods and services. But Aliko's vision went beyond just business. He knew that his cement plants were contributing directly to Nigeria's infrastructure growth. The country's roads, bridges, schools, and homes were all built using Dangote cement. This was no longer just about business, it was about nation building. In the words of Aliko himself, "The impact of Dangote cement on Nigeria has been enormous. We've helped to build the roads, the schools, the hospitals, the very foundation of the country's growth." By the early 2010s, Aliko Dangote had cemented his position as one of Africa's most powerful entrepreneurs. Dangote Cement was not just a business anymore. It had transformed into a pillar of the Nigerian economy, a force driving the continent's industrialization. But for Aliko, this success was merely the beginning. He had always understood that sustainability in business meant diversification. A business empire rooted in a single industry, no matter how successful, was vulnerable to external factors. In the volatile world of global trade, economic cycles, regulatory changes, and market shifts could threaten the stability of any one business. So, Aliko set his sights on spreading the risk and broadening his influence across multiple industries. The question, of course, was, where to begin? He had already conquered cement, but there were other markets, equally lucrative, equally demanding, waiting to be disrupted. In the early 1990s, Aliko noticed another gap in Nigeria's market: flour milling. Nigeria, like many other countries in Africa, was deeply dependent on wheat imports. The nation was one of the largest consumers of wheat flour on the continent, but it was entirely dependent on foreign countries for its supply. Aliko saw this as a major weakness in Nigeria's food security and an opportunity. At the time, local flour mills were few, and the few that existed were struggling to meet the growing demand for flour in Nigeria's expanding cities. People were eating more bread, cakes, and pastries, and with the population rising, the need for flour was intensifying. But because of the country's dependence on imports, flour was becoming more expensive. The cost of producing local bread and pastries was rising, and this was squeezing local bakeries and food manufacturers. He moved quickly, acquiring the Nigerian flour mills and establishing the Dangote flour mills in 1999. His strategy was simple: He would bring in the latest milling technology, improve efficiency, and keep costs low. The goal wasn't just to supply flour for the local market, it was to reshape the entire industry. Aliko invested heavily in modern mills, bringing in state-of-the-art technology from Europe. He ensured that every mill was equipped to process flour at a faster rate with greater output, allowing the company to keep up with demand. He also implemented logistical improvements, ensuring that distribution networks stretched across the country, enabling Dangote flour mills to reach urban centers and rural areas alike. With his success in flour milling, Aliko began to think even bigger. Nigeria's food sector was vast, and within it lay yet another industry ripe for disruption: sugar. Nigeria was another nation deeply dependent on imported sugar. Despite being one of the largest consumers of sugar in Africa, the country lacked the capability to meet domestic demand. Aliko knew that, much like cement and flour, sugar was an essential commodity that no nation could afford to import indefinitely. It had to be produced locally. In 1999, he founded Dangote Sugar Refinery in Lagos, with the intention of not only producing refined sugar, but also developing a sustainable supply chain for sugarcane, which could then be processed into refined sugar. The challenge was formidable. Sugar production in Nigeria had always been inefficient and unprofitable. But Aliko was undeterred. He threw himself into the industry with the same energy he had brought to cement and flour. He knew that refining sugar was just one part of the equation. To make Dangote sugar a dominant force, he needed to invest in backward integration, producing raw sugar from sugarcane locally, rather than importing it. This was a massive undertaking. Aliko had to convince Nigerian farmers to shift their focus to sugarcane production, which was a new crop for many. He began to partner with local farmers, providing them with resources, training, and access to modern farming equipment. In return, he secured a steady supply of sugarcane for his refineries. By 2005, Dangote Sugar Refinery was producing a significant portion of Nigeria's sugar needs, and the company continued to grow. It would eventually become one of the largest sugar refineries in Africa, expanding into neighboring countries such as Ghana and Togo. Aliko's determination to build a self-sufficient sugar industry in Nigeria became a symbol of his broader strategy to improve the nation's agricultural sector and reduce reliance on imports. But Aliko's vision went far beyond food and cement. He had already conquered multiple industries, yet he was keenly aware of a fundamental issue that all African businesses faced: the lack of reliable, affordable energy. In many parts of Africa, power shortages were crippling businesses and stifling growth. Aliko realized that if Africa's manufacturing and industrial sectors were to grow, they would need a steady and affordable energy supply. He saw an opportunity to address this issue through investment in oil and gas. In the late 2000s, Aliko made his move into the oil and gas industry. Through his company, Dangote Group, he acquired stakes in several oil refineries and petrochemical ventures. His goal was straightforward: to build refineries that could produce refined petroleum products for local markets and ensure energy security for Nigeria and the larger African continent. His most significant investment came in 2013 when he announced plans to build one of the largest refineries in the world, the Dangote Refinery in Lekki, Lagos. The project, which would cost billions of dollars, was an ambitious attempt to transform Nigeria into an energy powerhouse by drastically reducing the country's dependency on imported refined petroleum. As Aliko's conglomerate grew, so did his ambitions for Africa. He had always believed that the key to success in Africa was integration, building businesses that could span borders, provide jobs, and create regional economic ties. In the 2010s, he began to invest heavily in sub-Saharan Africa, with Dangote Group expanding its operations into countries like South Africa, Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, and Zambia. Each new market was a calculated decision, guided by Aliko's extensive research into local demand, competition, and regulatory conditions. He wasn't just importing products into these countries. He was building factories, creating infrastructure, and directly contributing to local economies. His companies produced everything from cement to food products to energy, creating thousands of jobs and giving millions of people access to more affordable, locally produced goods. By the mid-2010s, Dangote Group had become one of the largest and most diversified conglomerates in Africa. The company had its hands in everything from manufacturing to energy, agriculture, and financial services. Its expansion across multiple industries had transformed the business landscape in Nigeria and the broader African continent. Dangote's strategy was clear: to be involved in industries that were critical to Africa's development. His focus was on long-term growth and the creation of an African business model that could compete with the giants of the world. By now, Aliko Dangote had moved beyond the image of a business magnate. He was now a visionary, someone who had reshaped the fabric of Nigeria and Africa's business landscape. He was no longer just a businessman. He was an industrialist, a nation builder, and an inspiration to millions of Africans who looked up to him. With each new plant, refinery, or acquisition, Dangote cemented his legacy as one of Africa's greatest entrepreneurs, and his work was far from finished. His vision, to create a diversified, sustainable African business empire, was on track to reshape not only the Nigerian economy, but also Africa's place in the global marketplace. Aliko Dangote's story is not just one of personal success, but one of national transformation. His rise from a young boy in Kano, Nigeria, to the owner of a multi-billion-dollar empire is a narrative steeped in determination, vision, and an unyielding commitment to African development. As Dangote looked out from his office windows, watching the sprawling cityscape of Lagos, it wasn't just the wealth or power he had accumulated that brought him pride. It was the profound effect his empire had had on the lives of millions. Aliko often reflected on the opportunities he was able to create for others, especially in a continent where economic challenges had long been a barrier to success for so many. His businesses had not only contributed to economic growth, but had changed the fabric of Africa's industrial landscape. When Aliko Dangote set out on his entrepreneurial journey, he never just sought to build a profitable business. He wanted to change Nigeria, to address the country's deep-rooted economic vulnerabilities and create a model of self-sufficiency. Nigeria, like much of Africa, had historically been a major importer of essential goods, from food to cement and fuel. Dangote saw this dependence as a critical flaw. From the very beginning, Dangote Cement became a game-changer. As Nigeria's infrastructure needs skyrocketed with its expanding population and urbanization, Dangote Cement not only fulfilled the demand, but became a cornerstone of the Nigerian construction boom. By producing cement domestically, Aliko was able to reduce Nigeria's reliance on foreign imports and give local industries the means to thrive. But Aliko's influence didn't stop there. Through the creation of Dangote flour mills, Dangote sugar refinery, and his significant investments in the oil and gas sector, he transformed Nigeria's agricultural and energy sectors. His investments not only boosted local production, but also reduced import dependency, providing jobs, technical skills, and economic growth to regions that were previously underserved. By the time the 2000s rolled around, Dangote's empire had grown into a multi-sector powerhouse, with the conglomerate expanding into industries such as agriculture, logistics, and energy. Aliko's investments had created thousands of jobs and stimulated economic activity across the nation. As one of the largest employers in Nigeria, Dangote's businesses had become the backbone of the Nigerian economy, contributing significantly to employment, trade, and national infrastructure development. Perhaps one of Dangote's greatest achievements lies in the impact his businesses have had on employment across Nigeria and beyond. His conglomerate employs tens of thousands of Nigerians, offering jobs in diverse sectors, from manufacturing and engineering to logistics, administration, and sales. Through these direct employment opportunities, Dangote Group has become a significant engine of economic mobility. The multiplier effect has been far-reaching. For every job created at a Dangote plant, hundreds of others benefit indirectly. Local suppliers, contractors, and distributors rely on Dangote products, and smaller businesses thrive from the steady demand generated by his factories and refineries. Dangote's factories in remote areas have particularly impacted rural economies, providing opportunities for workers who would otherwise struggle to find employment in urban centers. Beyond employment, Dangote has transformed local infrastructure. His cement factories, for instance, have led to the development of roads, water systems, and power supplies in regions where such infrastructure was once lacking. In many ways, the Dangote Group has become a catalyst for change, lifting entire regions and empowering local communities to build sustainable economies. As Aliko's influence spread beyond Nigeria, he focused on building a pan-African business empire. His expansion into countries like South Africa, Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, and Zambia marked a significant turning point in the region's economic development. Dangote was not simply importing goods into these nations. He was building factories, creating jobs, and fostering economic independence for millions of Africans. In countries like Ethiopia, Dangote's cement plants have become central to the nation's infrastructure development, while in South Africa, his investment in refining has helped meet the growing demand for energy. By targeting countries that needed both industrialization and sustainable growth, Dangote had positioned himself as a leader in the African development agenda. His businesses contributed to the localization of industry across the continent, transforming Africa from a net importer of essential goods into a continent capable of meeting its own demands. In Ethiopia, for instance, Dangote cement has not only met the local demand for cement, but has also exported it to other African nations. This regional integration is precisely what Aliko envisioned: an interconnected African economy with local businesses working to support one another. Aliko's strategy, focusing on self-sufficiency in critical sectors, became a model for other African entrepreneurs. He proved that Africa could dominate its own markets, break free from foreign dependence, and build a sustainable economic future. Aliko Dangote's legacy is not just about business. He has always believed in the importance of education and empowerment. Throughout his career, he has actively supported educational initiatives across Africa. In Nigeria, his contributions to education have ranged from funding scholarships to building schools and supporting vocational training programs for young Nigerians. In 2014, Dangote made a $1.25 billion donation to the Aliko Dangote Foundation, aimed at promoting education, healthcare, and poverty alleviation across the continent. The foundation has supported initiatives ranging from educational scholarships to medical outreach programs. Aliko recognizes that for Africa to realize its full potential, young people must be equipped with the skills and knowledge needed to succeed in the modern economy. His commitment to education also extends to the corporate world. Dangote's emphasis on training and capacity building within his companies has enabled thousands of young Africans to build careers in fields like engineering, management, and business development. By investing in the development of a skilled workforce, Aliko is ensuring that his legacy endures and contributes to the sustainable growth of Africa. Aliko Dangote's legacy is one of inspiration for a generation of Africans who dream of achieving economic success in a challenging environment. His rise from humble beginnings to becoming Africa's richest man has made him a symbol of hard work, perseverance, and vision. He is not just an entrepreneur. He is a role model for aspiring business leaders, particularly in the developing world. His story proves that with the right mix of ambition, education, and resourcefulness, anyone can build a business that has a profound impact on their country, their continent, and even the world. Beyond his personal achievements, Aliko has also been instrumental in promoting African entrepreneurship on the global stage. He regularly speaks at international forums, advocating for more foreign investment in Africa and promoting the idea that Africa must take charge of its own economic destiny. His influence extends far beyond business, as he continues to shape the narrative around Africa's future as a powerful, self-sustaining economic entity. Aliko's commitment to philanthropy has been just as significant as his business ventures. Through the Dangote Foundation, Aliko has channeled millions of dollars into various social causes, from healthcare to education, and from poverty alleviation to infrastructure development. The foundation's work continues to touch the lives of millions of Africans. Dangote's philanthropic efforts have focused on areas where he believes his businesses can have the most significant social impact. In healthcare, his foundation has funded the construction of hospitals, provided medical equipment, and launched campaigns to combat diseases like malaria and HIV/AIDS. In education, it has provided scholarships to underprivileged students, helping to lift individuals and families out of poverty. Today, Aliko Dangote's name is synonymous with industrial success, economic growth, and social responsibility. His businesses continue to grow, and his influence continues to spread. His legacy is not only about the wealth he has accumulated, but the lasting change he has brought to Nigeria, Africa, and the world. He has shown the world that Africa can lead in innovation, manufacturing, and sustainable development. Aliko Dangote's journey, from a young boy in Kano to Africa's most successful businessman, is not just a success story. It is a blueprint for Africa's future, a future that is grounded in self-reliance, education, and entrepreneurial spirit. Subscribe, follow, share, and be inspired by the heroes who have paved the way for future generations.